Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're jumping right into a revolution. I mean, this could totally reshape finance as we know it. We're talking about bringing real-world assets onto the blockchain. And we're going to focus on one platform, Chintai, that's trying to get right in the middle of this massive multi-trillion-dollar shift. All right, let's just start with this. I mean, when the CEO of BlackRock, the biggest asset manager on the planet, says something like this, you have to pay attention. It tells you a massive shift is already happening. This isn't some tiny crypto niche we're talking about. This is the potential reinvention of the entire financial market. So what is all this excitement about, really? What are RWAs? Well, put simply, it's about taking real stuff, like a piece of real estate, stocks, bonds, you name it, and creating a digital twin, a token for it on a blockchain. Why? Because it makes everything so much easier to trade, to split up into smaller pieces, and just to manage in general. And look, this isn't just some theory anymore. The numbers that analysts are throwing around for how big this whole thing could get, they're just staggering. $28 trillion. Let that sink in. That's what some people are projecting for the size of this market by 2030. A number that big, it doesn't just get people talking, it gets an entire army of people building. Okay, so if you're a business, how do you even get in on this action? How do you participate? Well, that's where companies like Chintai step in. They want to be the ones building the actual pipes, the infrastructure for this whole new digital economy. Yeah, you can really think of them like a business in a box for tokenization. They offer this all-in-one regulated service so that any business, whether it's a small startup or a giant bank, can take their assets and bring them onto the blockchain. So what does all-in-one actually mean? Well, they're basically handling the entire journey of a digital asset, from the moment it's created to getting it listed and traded and taking care of all the super important stuff in between, like compliance, keeping it safe, and making sure there's liquidity. It's truly meant to be a one-stop shop. Now, when you look at their credentials, one thing just jumps off the page: regulation. Getting regulated by the Monetary Authority of Singapore, or MAS, that's a huge deal. The MAS is known for being really tough, but also really smart about fintech. So this isn't just them checking a box, no way. It's a massive green flag, a signal of trust, especially for the big financial players. All right, so let's peek under the hood for a second. How does this whole machine run? Well, like any good ecosystem, it needs fuel. And for Chintai, that fuel is the CHEX token. And this is super important. CHEX isn't just some coin you buy and hope it goes up. It has a real job to do. It's the gas that makes everything on the Chintai platform go. If you're a company and you want to issue an asset, trade an asset, you gotta use CHEX. It's baked right into the system. And for anyone who's into tokenomics, this is a pretty big deal. Check this out. There's 1 billion tokens total, and 100% of them, they're already out there in circulation. So what does that mean? It means you don't have to worry about these massive future unlocks where a bunch of new tokens suddenly hit the market and potentially crash the price. What you see is what you get. But wait, there's more. On top of that, they take 5% of all their revenue and they use it to go out and buy CHEX tokens right off the market. And then they destroy them. They burn them, gone forever. It's a mechanism specifically designed to shrink the supply over time, which makes the whole thing deflationary. Okay, let's recap. We've got a potentially gigantic market, a platform that's fully regulated, and a token that's not only useful, but also designed to become more scarce over time. So, what's the investment case here? Let's get into the arguments for and against. Some people are incredibly bullish on this. I've seen them calling it the Shopify of RWA tokenization. They're basically saying this is a future blue chip in the making, and they're throwing out some pretty wild price targets, speculating that as the platform takes off, the token could just explode in value. And this slide really gets to the heart of it, right? It's the two sides of the coin. On one side, you have the bulls pointing to all these strong fundamentals, the regulation, the deflationary model, the fact that all the tokens are out there. But then you have the skeptics, and they're raising some really valid points about technical risk, who owns the tokens, and the fact that it's not that easy to buy right now. Let's dig into that proxy contract risk for a second, because it's important. Basically, it means the owner of the contract can change the code even after it's live. The master key analogy is perfect. Yeah, it's super useful if you need to upgrade or fix a bug, but it also means one group has a lot of power. It's a centralization risk, plain and simple.
So let's just lay out those concerns from the skeptic side one more time, because you really need to see both sides of the story here.
So if you're feeling cautious, it really boils down to three things. First, that contract control we just talked about, that master key. Second, you've got the top 10 wallets holding almost a quarter of all the tokens. That's a lot of concentration. And third, there's market access. It's just not listed on the big, easy-to-use exchanges yet, and that holds back its exposure to a wider audience.
And that's really what it all comes down to, isn't it? That's the big question. We have this absolutely enormous, multi-trillion-dollar wave coming in the form of RWAs. And then we have these under-the-radar platforms like Chintai, which look really promising on paper. So will those strong fundamentals and that regulatory stamp of approval be enough for them to become the next blue chips of this new digital world? Or are those risks we talked about going to hold them back? I mean, that's the multi-trillion-dollar question at the heart of this whole thing.